Independent Network News, brought to you by General Foods Maxwell House Instant Coffee and the Mobil Corporation.
Good evening. President Carter has been told by his aides that it is all over, that he has lost his bid for a second term in office, that according to United Press International. Sources told UPI that the grim assessment for Mr. Carter was based on vote samples taken by his very own pollster, Patrick Cadell. The president reportedly cried en route to Washington from Plains, Georgia. Of course, that grim news for the president was good news for Republican Ronald Reagan and his supporters, and both NBC News and the Associated Press have projected Reagan the winner of the presidential election. If these projections hold true, it will be the first time since Herbert Hoover that an elected incumbent president failed to win re-election. Hoover lost his bid for a second term in office back in 1932. Of course, President Ford lost to Jimmy Carter in 1976, but Ford was not elected to office.
Pat, in just about all parts of the country, the polls have already closed, and in many of those states, there are projected winners. These projections are based on a combination of reports from the three major television networks, as well as from Associated Press and United Press International. The big cities of the Northeast and their traditional Democratic strongholds were of little help to Mr. Carter this time. Ronald Reagan has been projected the winner in Pennsylvania, a state with 27 electoral votes. New Jersey's large block of electoral votes, 17, are also Reagan's, according to projections. In Delaware, another Reagan victory is projected. That adds 3 more electoral votes to his column. The Republican ticket is given a win in New Hampshire, a state with 4 electoral votes. Connecticut, a battleground where John Anderson was given his best chance for a victory, also went to Reagan. The GOP candidate is the projected winner in Maryland, a state with 10 electoral votes. Only one contest in the Northeast is going Mr. Carter's way. According to projections, that's the small District of Columbia, where there are 3 electoral votes.
Ohio, Illinois, Michigan, and Texas, 4 of the most populous states, have a total of 98 electoral votes, and that's more than 1/3 of the 270 electoral votes needed to win. In Ohio, Ronald Reagan is the projected winner again. In Indiana, Reagan is also the projected winner. That state has 13 electoral votes. Michigan, one of the states that it was considered undecided, has apparently made up its mind with Reagan the projected winner there. The state of Kansas, which voted for Gerald Ford in 1976, has given Reagan the win in 1980, according to the projections. And Texas, with a whopping 26 electoral votes, has also been projected a Reagan state. In 1976, Texas gave Jimmy Carter a win. Reagan is also the projected winner in Oklahoma, as well as in the state of South Dakota. And Reagan is also the projected winner in Illinois with 26 electoral votes. Pat?
And Bill, looking at the South, all 3 television networks project Ronald Reagan the winner in Florida with its 17 electoral votes. Florida was regarded as one of the 2 key toss-up states, the other one being Ohio. Reagan is also the projected victor in Virginia and Alabama. Alabama was one of those states that was in the undecided column right down to the wire. President Carter is the projected winner in West Virginia, as well as his home state of Georgia. And Ronald Reagan is projected to win in Kentucky, a previously uncommitted state, with 9 electoral votes.
In the South Dakota Senate race, 1972 Democratic presidential candidate George McGovern is projected to lose his Senate bid. And in the Indiana Senate race, Republican Dan Quayle scored an upset victory over Senator Birch Bayh. Democrat Chris Dodd was victorious in his Senate bid in Connecticut against James Buckley. Some other early Senate race results: John Glenn, a Democrat, was the winner in Ohio, although Carter lost in that state. Republican Charles Mathias won his race in Maryland. And in Georgia, Democrat Herman Talmadge has come up a winner again. In the House Democratic whip, John Bredamus went down to defeat in his Indiana race against John Heller.
As late as yesterday, analysts were predicting a record light turnout due to voter apathy, but they were wrong. And as Ford Rowan reports, many of the traditional voting blocs did the unpredictable at the polls today.
Experts in both the Carter and Reagan camps agree that bad economic conditions demolished traditional Democratic voting patterns. One source in the Carter administration said that Reagan's most effective campaign appeal was the simple question: are you happier and more secure now than you were 4 years ago? This appeal led to big inroads by Reagan into traditional Democratic constituencies. Reagan captured many blue-collar and union votes. Reagan attracted many Catholic votes, and Reagan attracted many of the so-called born-again, white Protestant votes. Carter forces could not hold the South and watched the industrial North slip away. Carter's lead with women evaporated. Jewish voters deserted Carter for Reagan and John Anderson. Blacks and Hispanics stuck with Carter, but it was not enough. Developments in the Iranian hostage crisis did not help Carter and only served to remind voters that the U.S. image abroad had suffered under Carter. Opinion surveys today showed that many people trusted Reagan more than Carter. Sources in the Reagan campaign said that Carter's efforts to portray Reagan as a warmonger had backfired. One source in the Carter administration said gloomily, "The mood of the country seemed to be, it's time for a change." Ford Rowan, Independent Network News, Washington.
Still to come, the president and the challengers sweating out a long election day. And news analyst David Schoenbrunn looks at a long-term political shift in the United States.
And also coming, Iran does not like what it hears from Washington, and thousands rally in Tehran to mark the beginning of the second year of captivity for American hostages.
A message from the Mobile Information Center.
Good evening, I'm Dick Callanan. America's coal reserves are the largest in the Western world, equivalent to 1 trillion barrels of oil. But due to government regulations, these reserves are largely untapped. At a coal mine in Wyoming, Carol Richards explains.
It's possible to open a new safe and clean coal mine in about 3 years. Yet in many instances, it's impossible to get all the government permissions in less than another 3 years. That's how long it takes to get the 100 or so permits required. Yet using coal, instead of heavy oil and natural gas, and industrial and utility furnaces capable of switching right now would alone save some 250,000 barrels of imported oil a day.
Many energy experts say it makes little sense to import over 7 million barrels of oil a day when Americans are sitting on so much coal.
This has been a message from the Mobile Information Center.
Thank you.
Thanks, Acadiana.
Thanks.
Merci beaucoup.
Dallas wants to say thanks, Acadiana, for letting us serve you for 85 years. So we're having a super anniversary celebration with thousands of dollars in gift certificates. All you have to do is register. And we've got a sale with 50% savings and more on brands you know and trust. At Abdallah's, clothing Acadiana for 85 years.
Thanks, Acadiana.
The holiday season is here, and Acadiana's leading fireplace center, Percy Guidry Ironworks, invites you to choose from their large selection of fireplace accessories like brass andirons, fire sets, outdoor log racks, and cast iron or steel log grates. And they're the exclusive dealer for the beautiful Puritan glass door fireplace screens. Everything you really enjoy for your fireplace is on display now, even popcorn poppers, bellows, matches, and coal hods. Come in now while selection is at its best at Acadiana's leading fireplace center, Percy Guidry's, 204 Wilson, Lafayette.
President Carter flew to Plains, Georgia today to cast his vote after a grueling 24-hour last-minute campaign swing through 6 states. He and the First Lady voted at the old brick high school in their hometown. And on emerging from the polling booth, Mr. Carter tearfully thanked his hometown supporters for traveling around the country on behalf of both of his presidential campaigns.
I've tried to honor your commitment to those other people. In the process, I've tried to honor my commitment to you. God bless you.
Later, Mr. and Mrs. Carter flew down to Washington by helicopter, where they plan to watch the election returns.
Ronald Reagan went to the polls with his wife Nancy today in their home neighborhood of Pacific Palisades outside of Los Angeles. When reporters asked for their prediction of the outcome, Mr. and Mrs. Reagan had different views.
You know me, I'm too superstitious to answer anything like that.
Cautiously optimistic.
Yes. I am cautiously optimistic, yes. Nancy.
Mr. and Mrs. Reagan had dinner with some close friends, then went to a hotel in Los Angeles for what they hoped would be a victory celebration.
John Anderson and his family walked the 3 blocks from their Rockford, Illinois home to an elementary school to cast their votes today. After filling out a paper ballot behind a red, white, and blue curtain, Anderson told reporters and neighbors voters who he had voted for president. Anderson Lucy, of course. Anderson wouldn't say how he cast his vote for any other races, but he did object to the president's statement yesterday that if Reagan wins, it will be because Anderson is on the ballot.
President on the basis of his record. Jimmy Carter has a record extending 4 years now, back to 1976 when he was elected. And if he should lose today, I am confident that it will be because of that record or because in the campaign he has not communicated to the American people a vision of the country that they share with him.
Later, Anderson and his wife flew to Washington, where they are now waiting for the final results of the hard-fought campaign.
Demographics, the science that tells us about ourselves, where people live, how many, what kind of people they are, and what they do. The demographers once said that the center of power in this country was in the liberal Northeast. Not anymore. And commentator David Schoenbrunn tells us what that will mean in this and future elections.
The number of voters of age to vote has hit an all-time high today of 160 million, and for the first time in history, the majority, 51%, lives in the South and the West. The Sun Belt states now surpass the industrial snowbird states in population, just about equal them in total personal income, and as people move south and west, they seem to move left to right, becoming more conservative. Let's look now at the figures of congressional seats as they've changed in the population shifts of the last 20 years. Florida in 1960, 12. In 1980, 18, up 6. Texas from 23 to 26, up 3. California, 38 to 45, up 7, the biggest gain. Pennsylvania, 27 to 23, down 4. Ohio, 24 to 21, down 3. And New York, the biggest loss of all, 41 to 35, down 6. These figures are based on projections of the 1980 census, and one other figure is highly significant. That's the growth of personal income in such states as Texas and California. In 20 years, Texas has increased personal income by 136%, California by 94%. Together, these two states equal in both population and income New Jersey, New York, and all of New England combined. You have already heard that it's a Reagan victory. It also is going to be accompanied by Republican gains in the House and the Senate, more conservative political clout in this nation for many years ahead.
Coming up, diplomats say it may be some time yet before the hostages are freed, and Iraq claims a big victory in the war with Iran.
Also coming, we'll have the business report, and Jerry Gerard reports on the Cleveland Browns battling for first place in the AFC Central.
Just had a hamburger loaded with onions. Kiss me.
Onions?
Hey, kiss me. I got the signal.
Minty.
Signal mouthwash fights strong mouth odors.
I just ate garlic bread. Kiss me.
Garlic?
Come on, kiss me. I got the signal.
Hey, nice. Signal fights strong mouth odors. Even garlic, even onions. Gives you fresher, cleaner breath. Clinical tests prove it. A kiss will prove it.
Kiss me. I got the signal. Philbot Brothers, 1 moment, please. Good morning.
Maxwell House is coffee to relax with. Maxwell House will brighten up your day. Maxwell House
is... will you please hold?
Good to the last drop, Maxwell House.
Relax with the great taste of Maxwell House coffee. Always good to the last drop.
I can connect you now. Thank you for waiting.
Good to the last drop, Maxwell House.
This is where it all begins. Accuracy, low down payment, and bank financing. And this is the reason you see so many cars and trucks in Acadiana today. Look at this beautiful selection. We have beautiful colors, beautiful styles of cars and trucks. And we don't want you to worry about the winter price because we don't worry about the winter price either. And if you come at Colville Toyota, we're going to treat you just like a brother. And oh, what a feeling to do business with Colville Toyota in Opelousas.
Dressing in leather or avoiding the weather, go undercover with a coat from Brothers. A blazer of the softest glazed lambskin will lend class to jeans or make a suit of your dressier separates. To conserve your energy, wear a fur of the fluffiest fox or smooth rabbit to keep you delightfully warm as it goes full speed ahead with every outfit you own. Whether hooded and pocketed or tapered and textured, let a coat from Brothers keep you under wraps.
Today marks the beginning of the second year of captivity for the 52 Americans in Iran. And at the United States Embassy in Tehran, the militants opened the gates to a parade of tens of thousands of Iranians who burned effigies of President Carter and shouted death to American imperialism. There was no word on whether the hostages have been transferred to government control, but the militants forbid anyone from entering the building where the hostages are believed held. And Iran petitioned Algeria to get a reply as fast as possible on Iranian conditions for their release, saying Washington's initial response was not satisfactory.
And in Washington today, prayer ceremonies were held for the hostages in Iran while the State Department analyzed the conditions for their release. As Drew Scott reports, the negotiations to free them are proceeding with caution.
At Washington Cathedral, hostage families gathered with Secretary of State Muskie for prayer. Prayer that the now one-year-long ordeal will soon come to an end.
O God of hope, who giveth us hope, we pray that the day of liberation for the hostages will come soon. Guide with thy wisdom those responsible for negotiating their release.
In the church were Penny Langan, wife of Bruce Langan, and former hostage Richard Queen. State Department officials, meantime, say they are studying the 4-page list of conditions for the release of the hostages. It seems the negotiating process is slowing to a crawl, possibly because a Reagan victory tonight would mean he would have to be directly involved.
They deserve careful analysis, careful study, and they will get it. Since we received the proposals yesterday afternoon, we've been doing precisely that, translating the document, reading it, studying it. We are going to be continuing to do that for a while longer.
Though no one is saying it publicly here, it appears the next U.S. move in hostage negotiations with Iran will come well after the results of the presidential election are known. Drew Scott, Independent Network News at the State Department.
Iraq is very confident, even arrogant, over the progress of the war with Iran, and today the Iraqis offered peace terms. President Hussein told his parliament that the Iraqi army would pull out of captured areas in Iran if the Iranians will recognize Iraq's claim to the Shatt al-Arab waterway and to certain islands in the Persian Gulf. Iraq says that it has taken the city of Awaz, the capital of oil-rich Khuzestan province, and Iraqi television offered scenes of the destruction inside Awaz as proof of that victory. Iraq now occupies hundreds of square miles of Iranian territory from the Persian Gulf north to the Turkish border. No reply so far from Iran to the Iraqi peace offer. Hussein says if Khomeini chooses to carry on the war, then war he will have.
In sports, the Cleveland Browns have won a lot of football titles through the years, but none recently. But their fans are excited about the 1980 Browns, and sports editor Jerry Gerard says there's plenty to be excited about. Jerry.
Oh, they've got a lot to cheer about. The team, after last night's win over Chicago, is 6-3. They are tied with Houston for first place, and they've got something they didn't have in recent years. In recent years, the Browns could always score. That wasn't the problem. They scored on everybody. The problem was defense. They didn't have it. Now they got some of it. Passable anyway. Last night, Brian Sipe had another big game, and right now he is the leading passer in the American Conference. With a minute to go in the first half and the score 3-0 Cleveland, he threw a touchdown pass to Reggie Rucker. That made it 10-0. He's thrown only 7 interceptions all year long. Then, in the fourth quarter, this pass to Charles White to the 1-yard line set up a touchdown run by Pruitt to make it 20-7, but then it was 20-14. 3rd and 1, 3:35 to go. Pruitt off right tackle, and he is gone 56 yards for the touchdown. The final was 27-21, but the big story was defense. Walter Payton, the best back in the league, was held to 30 yards in 11 carries. That's defense. Will the Browns win the division? Well, Dan Pastorini picked them to take it. Who am I to argue? In baseball, Steve Carlton has topped off a big year with the ultimate for a pitcher, the Cy Young Award. He won it easily, 24-9 for the regular season, earned run average of 2.3, 286 strikeouts. Hard to tell his reaction. He does not talk to the press. That's why some of his press conferences are boring. The American League Cy Young will be a lot tougher. Steve Stone, Mike Norris, Goose Gossage. They all have credentials. Pat?
Thank you, Jerry. Who pays for the cost of accidents at nuclear power plants? That question is in the courts for 3 Mile Island nuclear power plant, but in a similar case at Indian Point, New York, the courts have made a temporary ruling. The Consolidated Edison Company was told not to charge its customers following the breakdown of one of its reactors last month. Shutting the reactor down forced the company to use more expensive electricity generated by oil-fueled plants. In that accident, a leak filled the reactor chamber with 9 feet of water before it was discovered.
I can't believe it. I just can't believe it. I'm very surprised. I can't believe it. I really can't.
These people didn't believe Imperial would taste like butter till they tried it.
Imperial tastes just like butter. Light, sweet, fresh taste.
Imperial was very fresh, very creamy. Imperial has the rich and creamy taste of butter. I'm going to buy some right now before I leave the store.
Try Imperial Margarine and surprise yourself.
Panasonic calls this VHS recorder Omnivision. I call it Regivision because it tapes 6 hours of me off the air, even when I'm on the road. It also has stop action. And when I don't like what's on TV, I make my own with my Panasonic sound camera.
Panasonic 6-hour Omnivision.
Regivision.
Omnivision.
Available now at your audio sales and service leader for over 7 years, Sound Electronics.
In Paris, police think it may be the second job of a gang of burglars whose first robbery netted $10 million. The thieves looted the safe deposit boxes of a bank in a fashionable Paris suburb over a 3-day weekend. 300 boxes were broken into, but the amount stolen won't be known until box holders submit their inventories. Before leaving, the burglars spray-painted a message on the wall. It said, "Without hate, without violence, without weapons, thank you." But no one is saying you're welcome. A new round of violence hit Spain's Basque region yesterday as 2 gunmen opened fire in a bar near San Salvador, killing 4 paramilitary guards and wounding 6 others. The latest attack, which brought the political death toll to over 100 in recent months, was claimed by the Basque Separatist Movement, whose military wing is leading a bloody struggle against home rule in that region.
663,000 American cars were sold in this country last month, and that's 8% off from October, or up from October of last year. But there's been a steady improvement, a gradual recovery from the depths of the recession back in May. And Chrysler Corporation is doing well with its new compact cars and actually had a gain in sales from October of last year. Most American banks were closed today, so were the securities and commodities markets, and so the precious metals action was all in foreign markets. Gold gained $5.25 in London.
Come on, you guys, hands up! Defense!
It's your broker from Dean Witter.
I want to see you hustle.
Some people just aren't easy to please, especially when it comes to their investments.
Josie, we do it.
You look like you just heard from Dean Witter.
At Dean Witter, we can give even the hard-to-please investor something to smile about.
Okay, let's see that defense.
You look like you just heard from Dean Witter.
Most voters around our nation went to the polls under sunny skies today. Meteorologist Bob Harris is here with an overview of today's national weather picture and a look at what to expect tomorrow. Bob?
At least 3/4 of the nation enjoyed fine voting weather this Election Day 1980, with well above normal temperatures for this time of the year and no major storm systems. Checking this evening's weather satellite pictures, I can show you that almost all of the western and central states had sunshine through just some high, thin, scattered to broken clouds. The one exception was Washington State, where some rain fell today as a Pacific Ocean frontal system moved inland. You can see it swirling there. On contrast, there was heavy cloud cover over most of the mid and North Atlantic states, and on average, a wet weather front moving across the region deposited about 1/3 of an inch of rain today from the Carolinas right up to New England. As for you travelers, let's check out tomorrow's cross-country weather picture. And for you folks that watch us on WPTY TV in Memphis, a pretty day coming up. 68 degrees for a high in Memphis tomorrow. Plenty of sunshine. Going to be pretty across almost all of the country. Just the Northeast will contend with a blustery November day. Gusting winds, some scattered flurries up in the New England mountains, and rain up in Maine tomorrow. It'll be clearing up and down the Atlantic seaboard, though. Mild in the southeast, the nation's midsection. Warmer and warmer with each passing day. A high of 74 in Denver tomorrow. 70 in Salt Lake City, 85 in Las Vegas, and plenty of bright sunshine up and down the West Coast, except for some more rain up around Seattle and Portland. You make it a good day tomorrow.
Thank you, Bob. With polls still open in many parts of the country, President Carter tonight conceded the presidential election to Ronald Reagan. The president made the announcement to hundreds of disappointed campaign workers who had gathered at Carter-Mondale headquarters in Washington.
I promised you 4 years ago that I would never lie to you, so I can't stand here tonight and say it doesn't hurt. The people of the United States have made their choice, and of course I accept that decision, but I have to admit, not with the same enthusiasm that I accepted the decision 4 years ago. I might say I have a deep appreciation of the system, however, that lets people make the free choice about who will lead them for the next 4 years. About an hour ago, I called Governor Reagan in California, and I told him that I congratulated him for a fine victory. I look forward to working closely with him during the next few weeks. We'll have a very fine transition period. I told him I wanted the best one in history. And I then sent him this telegram, and I'll read it to you. It's now apparent that the American people have chosen you as the next president. I congratulate you and pledge to you our fullest support and cooperation in bringing about an orderly transition of government in the weeks ahead. My best wishes are with you and your family as you undertake the responsibilities that lie before you. And I signed it, Jimmy Carter.
And with that, Mr. Carter becomes the 11th president to lose a bid for a second term. The last one was Gerald Ford, who was not elected to the White House, and before that, it was Herbert Hoover back in 1932. And that's our report for November 4th, 1980. Thank you for joining us.
Independent Network News, brought to you by Mobil Corporation.